So up until this point in our parallel line unit, we've always been told that the lines are parallel, right? We've been saying, here's a pair of parallel lines. What's true about the measures of the angles? That's what your quiz was on. We were told the lines were parallel. Then I gave you some angles and said, okay, these are corresponding, now what? Okay, the angles are congruent, that kind of thing. We're going to kind of do the opposite now, okay? I hate to say the word opposite. It's actually called the converse, but you don't know what that means yet, but you will in a few weeks. We're going to say, okay, well, if we don't know that the lines are parallel, but we want to prove that they are, how can we do that? Okay, it's a little bit different. Up until this point, the lines have already been parallel. Now I'm trying to prove it. And there are 6 ways to prove the lines parallel. And you have all 6 of them written on this graphic organizer here. 4 here, and then you scroll down to the bottom, you have two other ones. And only these 4 can be used to prove the lines parallel. I'm sorry, only these 6. Which is why you have 6 index cards on your flip chart, correct? Okay. So we can use corresponding angles to prove that the lines are parallel. So here's what I want you to write in here. If corresponding angles are congruent, comma, then the lines are parallel. Now, we always had it the other way. If the lines were parallel, then corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, so that's how we were working with it before. But now we're doing what's called the converse of that. If corresponding angles are congruent, now we can say the lines are parallel because of that. Okay, so if corresponding angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. I bet you we can fill out the rest of these as well. What kind of situation must alternate interior angles be if the lines are parallel? They're also congruent, aren't they? So we're going to say the same thing here. If alternate interior angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. It's important that you write it as an if-then statement. And every single one of these will have then the lines are parallel. What follows the if might be a little bit different. So if this is true, then the lines are parallel. If that's true, then the lines are parallel. Okay? So what about consecutive interiors? What do you think would be true about those? They wouldn't be congruent this time. What would they be? Supplementary. So if consecutive interior angles are supplementary, then what? Hello. Then the lines are parallel. Very good. And then we have one last one here using the angle things that we know. Alternate exterior angles. Do we know what alternate exterior angles? Give me a pair, looking at that diagram, by the way. Give me a pair that are alternate exterior angles. Harriet? 4 and 6, is there another one? Jesse? 1 and 7, good. So if those happen to be, are they going to be congruent or supplementary? Congruent, good, because they're both acute angles, so we expect them to be, right? So if alternate exterior angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. We actually have theorems for these. It's called the corresponding angle theorem, the alternate interior angle theorem, the consecutive interior angle theorem, and alternate exterior angle theorem. I mean, it's nothing like shocking. That's what it's called, right? And that's what you're actually going to list 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want you to actually, at the bottom of each of your cards that you have on your flip chart, I want you to number them like I have. Number 1, corresponding angle theorem. Number 2, alternate interior angle theorem. Number 3, consecutive, I don't really care about the order, but these are the 4 right here, and we'll do about the last 2 in a minute, but those are what you're going to call them. Okay, so on your note cards, on your flip chart, I want you to put this, corresponding angle theorem. And then on the back of the corresponding angle theorem, you're going to actually write this sentence. If corresponding angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. But I also want you to include a picture of a pair of corresponding angles. Okay? So I'm going to kind of walk around and show you what I'm talking about. Corresponding angle theorem, draw a picture of corresponding angles with the degree measures being the same. And then on the back, you're going to write the if-then statement. Okay? And then you're going to do the same thing with the alternate interior angle theorem. And then on the back, what are you going to do? Write the if-then statement. So I'm going to pause the recording for a second, and I would like for you guys to go ahead and do the first 4 for me. Make sure you're drawing a picture on the front as well. And then on the back, write the if-then statement. So right now, we're just going to worry about these 4. We will worry about, or we'll go over the last 2 next class. They're kind of their own little special case, which is why they're separate. On your homework, you might have a question that looks something like this. Find the value of x so that this at line L is parallel to line P. We're not told the lines are parallel, but if we wanted to make sure they were parallel, what kind of equation would I write here? Just tell me what the equation would be. Jared? Equals what? Very good, because this would be the consecutive interior angle converse, right? So if these 2 angles were supplementary, which means they add to be 180, then the lines would be parallel, okay? So you're going to be doing some problems very similar to what you were doing before, right? Similar to the quiz. It's just this time we're saying, well, this is what x would have to be in order to make sure the lines are parallel, okay? But what I want to work on for the last 15 minutes of class is the construction for parallel lines. So everyone should have a compass. If you need to come grab one out of here because you didn't bring yours, that's fine. And I'd like us to practice on a blank sheet of paper first before we do the formal construction here on your cardstock, okay? So on the back of your flip chart, you will have a compass here. I'm sorry, you will have a compass. You'll have a room to make your construction. But what's cool about this construction is it's actually using one of our theorems, okay? We are going to copy an angle, and we're going to create some corresponding angles, and we're going to make sure that they're congruent. So what do we know? If corresponding angles are congruent, then the lines have to be parallel, right? So we're actually going to use this particular theorem, this converse of this corresponding angle converse theorem here, and we are going to use this, create some corresponding angles, make sure that they're parallel, make sure that they're congruent. So if they're congruent, then the lines have to be parallel. So on a blank piece of paper, I'd like us to practice this construction first, okay? So don't do it on the cardstock yet, please. Don't do this yet. Just practice it on a blank sheet of paper first, and then you can do it on the actual cardstock, okay? So, because I want this one to be your official one, so I want you to practice before you get to the actual one. So, you probably want to title it Parallel Line Construction with today's date, because that's what it is. Okay, constructing parallel lines. Today is the 9th. We should have one more notebook check before the end of the quarter here. So this is our parallel line construction. Okay. Today's the 9th. Okay. Yes, ma'am. You mean interims? Not till November. End of the quarter is like November 3rd or something like that. Interims should be printed. I think they come out tomorrow. You go home tomorrow. Just in time for Friday. Fun Friday. All right. Are we ready? Let's go ahead. We only have a couple minutes, guys, and I got to get through this construction. All right. So go ahead on your lined paper, on your notes. Go ahead and create the picture that you see here. Create a segment or a line. You can put arrows on it if you want, with a dot above it. Doesn't really matter where, as long as you have it above it. You don't want it to be super close. because you want to give yourself enough room, but not like, you know, ginormous either. You want it to be far enough above just to give yourself some room. All right. So what we're going to construct here is a line that's parallel to our given line that happens to pass through the point that's given to us. So I'm just going to kind of sketch it. This is not the construction, but I want you to visualize that we're going to create this line, something like this, and these two would be parallel. Here's what we're going to actually be doing. Again, don't do what I just did. This is just kind of showing you the process. We're going to actually create corresponding angles. And I'm going to take basically this angle here and copy it to the one up top to ensure if I copy that angle, won't it guarantee that they would be congruent? So if these are congruent, then don't the lines have to be parallel? So that's kind of the background behind our construction. So what we need to do is we need to create the angle first. So using your straight edge, the side of your notebook, the side of your paper, something straight, I want you to go ahead and create one line through, it doesn't really matter with the angle that you choose, just kind of connect, and you need to go pretty far above the dot as well. So you want to go through the dot, somehow intersecting the line below. Okay, so you can use this, if you're using my compasses, you feel free to use the edge of that case, because that will work as a straight edge as well. Okay? Now, I have basically created an angle down here, have I not? So what I want to do is I want to take this angle, and I want to kind of open my compass a little bit, and I'm just going to make an arc. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and create an arc to kind of mark the angle at the bottom. Okay, just mark the angle at the bottom. Once I've done this, I cannot open my compass anymore. I can't change the spread of the compass. It's got to stay where it is. And I'm going to move my compass up to my dot, or my point, and I'm going to make the same arc. Okay? Make the same arc at the top with the same spread. Okay? I've just kind of created two arcs here. Now, if we remember how to copy the angle from our earlier construction that we did several weeks ago, we have to measure the width, so to speak, or we have to measure how far apart the bottom angle is. So to do that, I'm going to take my compass. Now watch how I turned it this way. You really need to measure it with the compass and the mark part down here. Otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to take my compass. I'm going to have to rotate it a little bit more. Here we go. I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to open my compass enough so that it marks exactly that spread. And I'm just going to make a little X here. Okay? I've just measured the width of my angle. Now again, remember, it's much easier to move your paper than it is the compass. So if you're working inside of your notebook, you might want to take the paper out. That way you can keep your compass still and move your paper. And remember, you want to hold down, not the top, but hold down the sharp point on your paper when you're doing this. So holding the sharp point, letting go of the pencil, you don't need to touch the pencil. Holding the sharp point and moving your paper will make the construction go a little smoother for you. Once I've measured the arc and I've measured how wide my angle is down here, I'm not going to change the spread of my compass anymore, and I'm going to move my compass up here and make an arc. What happened? Oh, yeah. So I put it in the wrong spot. Notice what we had to do. Here I made an arc, right? Notice where this sharp point is. It needs to go all the way up to the sharp point. The sharp point needs to go all the way up to this where the blue line intersects. Not the dot, but where the blue line intersects. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to make a little X. I'm just copying my angle. This is the copy and angle construction. And then I will simply connect. the dot through the X, and those lines should be parallel. So we can say, yep, they're parallel. Okay? So I'm going to highlight what was given to us so we remember. We were given this line and that dot, weren't we? Okay? So here's what you need to do for next time. You need to actually make the construction on your card stock. You need to list the steps of the construction on your notes. And then you need to go ahead and fill out the rest of the note cards if you haven't done that already. Okay? We'll worry about solving for X next time. So I'll write it down here. Here's your homework. You ready? I want you to list the steps of the construction in your notes. I want you to actually do the construction on do the parallel line construction on the cardstock. And then I want you to go ahead and finish filling out 1 through 4 on index cards. Finish filling those out. Okay? If you did borrow a compass from me, if you could go ahead and return that at this time. If you borrowed a straight edge, you can return it. And we're there.